I declare war. So I'm going to get it started in a few minutes. I just want to give people time to tune in. And I'll share my screen and let you all know exactly what this video is about, this live stream is about in a second. So I'll give you all a couple of minutes to tune in. You know, I want to shout out a couple of people that are tuning in right now. Shout out to Water Sniper. Thanks for watching. Shout out for the couple of people that are here. We'll get started soon. Shout out to Psycho. I see you in the building. So I'm just going to give people a few minutes to tune in, and I'm going to get started. For those of you who don't know what this video is about, I'm doing a response to a Google Hangout that I saw the other day. It's a Hangout that lasted for about 4 hours, and I actually sat through and I watched it. I watched it in segments. I watched half of it on one day, watched the rest of it on another day, and I took a lot of notes, and I'm just going to show you all my notes right here. I'm going to go through these notes, and I'm going to respond to a lot of the things that were said during that Google Hangout. So let me see what Psycho's saying. So you said you swear you you just saved this great liberator dude. I was just about to go live on this feminist. I gotta find out about that. I gotta check that out, man. So when you go live, man, I gotta put your notifications on so I can know exactly when you go live on that. I gotta hear what you're gonna say on that issue. But yeah, I saw this Google Hangout and I was like, man, I gotta respond to this, man. And I was gonna be on it. I would have been on it. You know, O'Shea invited me to be on the Hangout, but because of my schedule, I wasn't able to be on it. So I told him that I would do a response to the video. And for the most part, this video, despite the title and everything, the highly inflammatory title, I'm going to try to primarily stick to the issues instead of like throwing around insults. But, you know, there's a reason why I used the title that I used. And I'm going to go into that in a second. You know, I'm going to explain like why I use these terms, like, you know, why I call these people fools for supporting Donald Trump, why I call them coons for supporting Donald Trump. In my mind, these people that support Donald Trump are no different from that guy Steven and Django. And that's probably going to be like one of my thumbnails for this video, a picture of like Steven, you know, like basically worshiping his slave master. That's what these people look like to me, these people that support Donald Trump. They look like complete idiots. They look like complete sellouts. And I don't understand how any rational, informed person could be supporting Donald Trump, person, period. But a black person in particular, you have to be a special kind of stupid to support Donald Trump. And I'm going to get into that in a second. I'm going to go into like all the details about that. For those of you who have not seen that Google Hangout, I will include a link in the description box. Actually, I already have the link in the description box to that Google Hangout. It's rather long, but you have to listen to it to just see how like naive these people are that were making all these comments in support of Donald Trump, especially this guy named Mike. And then there's this other guy, I think his name is Ike, this guy with this beard. He looks like the Taliban or whatever. You know, I don't know why that's like some fashion statement now where these people had these unkempt, crazy looking beards. But that's beside the point. But I'm going to go through these points that were raised. Shout out to Human Cyclops. I see you in the building. It's a few people here. So I'm going to do this quick hangout, go through these comments that they made during their hangout. And then I'm going to go, you know, respond to everyone's comments in the chat. And then after this one, I'm going to do another hangout on my New Possibilities channel, talking about some issues dealing with race and racism, some issues dealing with politics. So there's a whole lot of things to talk about this evening. So let's get right into it. So Psycho says, I was debating these black conservatives earlier in this live chat. The hypocrisy of these dudes is amazing. Absolutely. I mean, it's a lot of hypocrisy. I mean, these same people that had so much to say about Obama, they say virtually nothing about this clown, Donald Trump, who is an embarrassment to the nation. And let's just get right into it. Let me share my screen so you all can see which video I'm referencing. Just bear with me a couple of minutes. So this is the video right here that I'm referencing. It's called "Are Black Men Who Support Donald Trump Selling Out?" And it featured a whole bunch of people on this panel. You know, a lot of them were making some very ignorant and uninformed comments about Donald Trump. A lot of these people are new to politics. In fact, a lot of these so-called conservatives that were on this panel actually voted for Obama at one time. So these are wishy-washy, flip-flopping type of people. I mean, how do you go from supporting Obama to supporting a nut like Donald Trump? I mean, that tells you that you don't have any core principles. That tells you you don't have any core values. That tells you that these people don't have any sense of real conviction. Because, you know, it's just crazy for one person to go from one extreme to the next. And, you know, it's not like a lot of these people are lifelong conservatives or genuine conservatives, you know, people who have been, you know, with the Republican Party for a long period of time. These are some fly-by-night conservatives, unfortunately. These are people without principles or, you know, real core beliefs. Because, I mean, how else can you explain somebody flipping from being an Obama supporter a couple of years ago to being some staunch Donald Trump person? But yeah, this is the video I'm referencing. You know, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. This is in the description box for those of you who want to actually sit through and watch it. It's about 4 hours long. But in my mind, it's a display of just like how ignorant people are. So I'm going to go through my notes. But before I do that, I just want to start off by letting you all know like why I don't support Donald Trump and why I don't think most intelligent Black people should support him. And then, like, after I say that, I'm going to go into like why just people in general shouldn't support Donald Trump and what he represents. You know, in terms of Donald Trump, like why I don't support him. I don't support him because he is diametrically opposed to the interests of Black people. How else can you explain a man who describes the protesters who took place, who participated in that Charlottesville riot? How else can you describe somebody like this? Man actually referred to the participants in that demonstrations as a very fine people. These people are racist. These people are Confederates. These people are Nazis and KKK members. You had people like David Duke there. You had people like Richard Spencer there. White supremacists, people who advocate hatred, people who view Black people as inferior, people who are anti-Semitic, anti-everything that's not white. But these are the people in Donald Trump's mind who are some very fine people. Those people were protesting because there was talk about removing a Confederate statue. So these people came out in large numbers and committed acts of violence. They brutalized an African-American man. One of these nuts fired a gun towards an open crowd of people. You had another person actually kill a woman, running over a woman in his car during this demonstration that took place in Charlottesville. But in Donald Trump's mind, these were some very fine people participating in this. But yet and still, you have these ignorant Negroes that still stand by Donald Trump. They still support him, despite the fact that he supports white supremacists, despite the fact that this man deliberately pandered to white supremacists. He campaigned using the language of these white supremacists, playing all the dog whistles to appeal to these white supremacists. But these ignorant Negroes are too blind, deaf, and dumb to see what this man is all about. It is no coincidence that you have these white supremacists support this man in large numbers. You have the KKK supporting him. You have neo-Nazis supporting him. You have the so-called alt-right supporting him. You have Richard Spencer supporting him. You have David Duke and all these other white supremacists supporting this man. That is not a coincidence. They support him because he upholds their values. He represents them. He speaks for them. But yet you have these ignorant Negroes that don't have any problem supporting a man who supports white supremacists. They don't have any problem with that. These people are lost. His whole anti-immigrant push is nothing but white supremacist talking points. covered up in this talk about patriotism. But really, at the end of the day, it's about their fear of the browning of America. It's about their fear of people of color coming to this country. They want America to be a white country. That's what they want. They fear white genocide. And that's part of the reason why this anti-immigrant sentiment resonates with these hate mongers. But yet you have these ignorant Negroes buying into this anti-immigrant sentiment, not realizing that these same people that hate the immigrants hate Black people. You heard what Donald Trump said about Black countries, talking about the whole continent of Africa, referring to it as a shithole, talking about how they want more people from Norway, more white people in this country. But these ignorant Negroes can't see this. They can't figure it out. They are still supporting a man that's made it abundantly clear that he has no love for them, period. So that's the first thing. You Charlottesville. I mean, that should be enough. Just like hearing that and seeing his response to that situation should be enough to seal the deal and make it abundantly clear that this man couldn't give a damn about Black people. And then you have the issue of affirmative action. This man is trying to use the Justice Department to destroy affirmative action. He's weaponizing the Justice Department to undermine affirmative action. And affirmative action is very important, especially for a group of men, many of whom were on that panel who are educated, who benefit from affirmative action, who wouldn't have an education if it wasn't for affirmative action, wouldn't have had an opportunity to go to graduate school or to college if it wasn't for affirmative action. But these same Negroes are supporting a man that is trying to get rid of affirmative action, a man that's going to appoint justices that are going to destroy affirmative action. You know, with Kennedy's retirement, you know, Kennedy was a swing vote on the Supreme Court, who voted in support of affirmative action cases and stuff like that, made the difference in some of those affirmative action cases and other cases. Now Trump is going to have the power to appoint another Supreme Court justice, and that's going to bring the court further to the right, you know, and it's going to make it more possible for them to eliminate affirmative action. And that will close doors of opportunity for Black people. You talk about how you want Black people to succeed, you want Black people to get an education, you want Black people to be responsible and all that kind of stuff. But when you close those doors of opportunity, that means that there will be less Black professionals, less Black people able to succeed in life because of this move to eliminate affirmative action. So that's one thing. Then when you go to voting rights, you have Negroes voting for a man who is trying to undermine Black voting rights, trying to suppress Black voting rights. This man set up a sham voter fraud commission whose real mission was to suppress Black and Latino voters, to make it less likely for them to be able to elect candidates, to suppress the number of African Americans and Latinos who were eligible to vote, finding all kinds of ways to suppress the vote. In fact, someone who worked for Cambridge Analytica, you know, that group that got into a lot of controversy, you know, there was a big deal about that person, that organization, Cambridge Analytica, going on Facebook and obtaining all this private information about people. But this person that actually worked for Cambridge Analytica pointed out how they were basically trying to suppress the Black vote. They had an operation designed to suppress Black voters. This is Donald Trump. This is the man that these ignorant Negroes are trying to support, a man that wants to suppress the Black vote. How can you as a voter vote for somebody that tried to suppress your vote? How does that make any kind of rational or logical sense? But this is the logic that these conservatives, you know, so-called conservatives run with. They're going to support a man that's tried to suppress their vote. And when they talk about like this operation to suppress Black voters, you know, this operation that Cambridge Analytica had, I want to know more of the details, like how was this operation conducted? What kind of tactics did they use to try to suppress the Black vote? And when I think about that in general, it makes me think about these so-called Black power advocates that you see on YouTube, these idiots telling Black people not to vote, actually having don't vote campaigns. I wonder if somehow this Trump administration didn't manipulate those people to get them to actually work against the interests of Black people. Because anytime you discourage Black people from voting, you are taking away the power that Black people potentially have to determine our own destiny, to elect candidates that advance our agenda. That's what you do when you suppress the Black vote. And that's exactly what these fake pro-Blacks were basically doing, suppressing the Black vote by encouraging Black people not to vote. And basically, again, that makes me wonder if Cambridge Analytica didn't have anything to do with that, if they had anything to do with that at all in terms of the suppression of Black votes. So you ask the suppression of Black votes as another reason why Black people in their right mind shouldn't be supporting this Trump administration. Another reason is the Trump administration's approach to police brutality. You have this man on record giving a speech to a group of police officers, and he's basically suggesting that they should rough up suspects, minority suspects. And then on top of that, you have a Trump administration that decided to appoint a Jeff Sessions to be the Attorney General. A man who has made it clear that he doesn't want to enter consent decrees to stop police departments from engaging in racist, discriminatory policing practices. And this is an administration as well. It's made it abundantly clear that the issue of police brutality is a non-issue in their mind. It is an issue for local governments, not the federal governments in the mind of Donald Trump. You know, despite the fact that you have all these incidents of police brutality going on all over the country, you had that brother Antoine Rose who was shot and killed shot as he was running from the police, as he was posing no threat, unarmed. You have the case of Stephon Clark, gunned down, killed by these police. You have the case of Eric Garner, choked to death live on camera, and no justice anywhere in sight. You had a case of Sam Dubose and all these other cases of police brutality, but yet in Donald Trump's mind, this is a non-issue. How can a Black man actually support a man that doesn't view police brutality as an important issue, especially given the fact that it is Black men who are disproportionately targeted by these police for assassination, for brutality? You can't claim to be an advocate for Black men and then turn a blind eye to a president that doesn't give a damn about Black men being killed by these police. How can you talk about a Black manosphere or a Negro manosphere and you don't even care about the Black man being killed by these stinking police? You don't even care about a president who doesn't give a damn about police brutality. You can't be a real advocate for Black men if you turn a blind eye to police brutality, if you turn a blind eye to this man who's made it abundantly clear that fighting police brutality is a non-issue for him. So you have that. And then you have Donald Trump's approach to these Black football players who have taken a stand against police brutality by refusing to stand during the playing of the national anthem. This man, Donald Trump, said that those football players need to be fired. This man, Donald Trump, said that those men who participate in those protests are sons of bitches. That's what Donald Trump said. These are Black men who are standing up, who are protesting against police brutality. And Donald Trump refers to them as sons of bitches, and you're okay with that as a Black man? As a Black man, you're okay with Donald Trump disrespecting Black men in such a fashion, disrespecting Black women by referring to them as bitches? You're okay with that? Where's your manhood? Where's your pride? Where's your dignity? How are you going to tolerate something like that and still call yourself a Black man? How are you going to tolerate something like that and still claim to be an advocate for Black men? That doesn't make any sense at all. Here we have brothers standing up for a cause that matters, standing up for a cause that affects all of us. You know, these police having a right and a license to kill black people and there's no justice in sight. And you want to demonize, you know, you have this Trump clown trying to demonize these brothers for taking a stand, demanding justice for black people. It's outrageous, man. And then when you look at how Donald Trump dealt with protesters during his campaign, black protesters, many of these protesters were black. Donald Trump was basically encouraging his followers to attack these black protesters, many of whom were black men. Attack them, you know, pushing people, punching people. That's what Donald Trump encouraged them to do. Donald Trump said that he would have attorneys represent these people that engaged in this kind of brutality. He encouraged violence against black people, but you're okay with that as a black man. You don't have any problem or issues with that as a black man. There's something wrong with you. There's something seriously wrong with you if you think that it's okay for this man to advocate violence against black protesters, many of whom are black men. You can't claim to be an advocate for black men and turn a blind eye to that kind of brutality, to that kind of incitement to violence against black men and black people. You can't claim to be an advocate for black men. How in the hell can you claim to be an advocate for black men and you turn a blind eye to a president referring to the African continent as a shithole? How do you explain that? Referring to Haiti as a shithole. Many of us, you know, we're Africans. We are African people. Our ancestors came from Africa. By making those derogatory statements, he is disrespecting black people, period. And he is making it abundantly clear, as I said before, that he doesn't want people of color in this country, that he wants more white immigrants to this country. He's made this abundantly clear. But yet and still, you have these blind, deaf, and dumb Negroes running around here with some Make America Great Again hats on, running around here talking about how they support Donald Trump. These people are fools. These people are coons. Because how in the hell are you going to support a man that's contrary to the interests of black people? How are you going to do that? As far as I'm concerned, any black person wearing that Make America Great Again hat is like a black person wearing a dunce cap. That hat is a dunce cap for all intents and purposes. And you remember what a dunce cap was. You know, it had the pointy it was a pointy hat with the word dunce written across it, which means dummy, you know, somebody that's stupid. And that's how these Trump supporters are. You have to be stupid to support somebody that's made it clear that they are fundamentally opposed to the interests of your people. You have to be stupid. The other thing is this man was sued for housing discrimination. This man was sued because he did not want to rent to black people. He didn't want to rent to your black ass. But here your dumb black ass is with a Trump hat on your head talking about making America great again. Here you are with your dumb self supporting a man that didn't even want to allow you to stay on his property, didn't even want to accept your dollars because he had so much animus towards black people. But here you are supporting this man. It's just absolutely asinine, man. And this, I mean, he was sued by the Justice Department, man. These aren't ambulance chases. The Justice Department only brings cases after conducting a thorough investigation, after conducting testing to verify that there's discrimination. This man was forced to settle in those cases. Twice, not once, twice. That tells you something about this man. Also, this man is on record, you know, according to a biographer or something like that, of talking about how he doesn't want black people counting his money. But you have black people supporting this guy. This is a man who refers to African Americans as my black person or my African American, like he owns people, just like how the slave master used to own slaves. That's how he talks about black people. But yet and still, you have these dumb, deaf, and blind Negroes with these Make America Great hats on, talking about how they love Donald Trump. They look like complete idiots. That's what they look like. And then when you go to like the social programs that this man is trying to get rid of, this man is trying to cut Section 8, a program that benefits Black people in disproportionately high numbers. He's trying to cut food stamps, a program that benefits Black people in high numbers. High numbers. You know, he had this Negro, this house Negro, Ben Carson. They're using this man, a man who claims to have grown up in public housing, to undermine the rights of people that are in need of those kinds of programs, you know, like Section 8, to provide them with housing. You know, his idea of making America great again is him making poor Black people homeless again. That's his idea of making America great again. His idea of making America great again is taking the food out of the mouths of poor Black people and poor people in general. But you're okay with that. You have these ignorant Negroes celebrating the cutting of these kinds of programs because they are fueled by hatred. They are so hateful towards Black women that they will support things that are contrary to the interests of Black people as a collective. So out of their animosity towards Black women, they celebrate the end of Section 8. They celebrate the cutting of food stamps, even though it's food stamps that fed Black boys who lived in those single parent households. Food stamps feeds people, man. It's a survival program for those people that are in need of food assistance. You know, people get all high and mighty. I mean, some of these people advocating this stuff and celebrating it are people who as children relied on these kind of programs to eat. These are people who as children relied on these kinds of programs for housing, but yet they want to celebrate this because they think that somehow this is getting back at the Black woman. They think that somehow this is giving the Black woman a leg up. I mean, this logic is illogical. There is no logic to this. This is coon logic. This is misogynistic logic. This is hateful logic. That's what it is. How does it benefit Black people to cut away those programs? Programs that feed people, programs that house people. But this is what passes as, you know, as conservatism. You know, this is what they support. This is the man they support. A man has made it clear that he's against the interests of Black people. So I'm going to go through these comments before I go to these notes from the actual live stream that they did. I'm going to just respond to things step by step through these notes. I took quite a few notes. So let's see what people are saying. So Tiffany Phillips said, I think a lot of these so-called Black conservatives are involved in a hustle. And yeah, I mean, I think that that's the case, man. I definitely agree with that. You know, these people are charlatans. Some of these people are not even real conservatives, like that Candace Owens woman, that fraud Candace Owens. And I can't wait to get around to doing that video about her. These people aren't real conservatives. You know, as I said before, many of them voted for Obama, and now all of a sudden they expect us to believe that there's some real conservatives. For many of these people, it's all about money. It's all about views. It's all about subs. That's their motivation. It's not about some genuine interest in the cause or the plight of Black people, or, you know, some genuine interest in conservatism. It's about getting a paycheck. It's about getting notoriety, because they know that that's the route. It's an easy route for them to get attention. Because, for instance, in, you know, left-leaning politics, there's a lot of competition for people to have their voices heard, because there are more Black people that go towards the left or who are Democrats or whatever. That's a competitive field. But and as far as the right is concerned, there are few Black people in that arena, so it's easy for someone to gain shine and for someone to gain attention under those circumstances. So that's what it's about. And they know that as soon as they get on there and they start cooning and tap dancing, they know that white people, white conservatives in particular, love that. They love a good coon show, and they will support that coonery and buffoonery. They will support it just like they support those buffoons, Diamond and Silk. You know, people that are ignorant when it comes to politics. People that are literally buffoons like them, clowns, idiots, you know, court gestures being put on Fox News because of their cooning, because of their mammy routine, because of their Sambo show. They are being put on in positions of notoriety, even though these people aren't political scientists, even though these people are some of the most uninformed, ignorant people ever. But because of their stance, because they take a conservative stance and they support this man, Donald Trump, they're receiving all kinds of fame and attention and money because of that. So yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. They are involved in a hustle. They are no different from these, you know, these fake pro-blacks that you see on here. You know, people that aren't really about the cause. They're about making money. They're about entertaining folks. And they are hypocrites, like Psycho said, man. These people that have so much to say about Obama not doing this, Obama not doing that. These people have nothing to say about Donald Trump being openly hostile to the interests of black people. These people can't point to one policy that this man has implemented that has benefited black people. All these people talk about is the fact that black unemployment is low. But they can't point to any policy that Donald Trump is responsible for that led to that low black unemployment rate. We know for a fact that it was policies that Obama had in place that resulted in the decline of black unemployment. And because of the policies he put in place, black unemployment continues to decline. The most that we can say is that Donald Trump didn't mess that up so far. But who knows what's going to happen with these tariffs that Donald Trump has imposed against American allies like Canada, like Mexico, and others. And then he has this war that's going on, this trade war that's basically going to get started with China. We don't know what impact that will have on the economy. And that brings me to other issues that I have with Donald Trump outside of, you know, the black agenda. This man is anti-immigrant. You know, this man is a racist. This man ran his campaign by bashing Mexicans, by talking about how they're rapists and they're criminals. That's what this man said. And again, you know, the same people that hate these immigrants hate black people. Again, it's no coincidence that these Nazis and hate mongers and Klansmen, that they rally around this man. So that's another reason why I can't, you know, why no rational person should support Donald Trump. And then when you look at the sexism of this man, here you have a man that's accused of sexually assaulting women, of sexual misconduct, of adultery. You know, here you have a man that's on videotape bragging about sexually assaulting women. But yet and still, you have these people that are conservative, who purport to be all about family values and stuff, purport to be religious-minded people, men and women of God. But yet and still, these people, these damn hypocrites, support this man. You know, these people that had so much to say about gay marriage and all these other liberal social issues, they don't have anything to say about Donald Trump's lifestyle and Donald Trump's disrespect of women, his opposition, you know, through his conduct of family values. They don't have anything to say about that. They're silent as church mice when it comes to that. They don't have anything to say about that. They don't have anything to say about the fact that his wife basically was like a Playboy, is like a Playboy bunny or whatever, all over the media, half naked or naked. And there's some photographs of her engaging in lesbian acts. But these so-called conservatives that are all about family values, they have no problem with that. they're okay with that. They're fine with that. They're turning a blind eye to that. And that's hypocrisy. That's the kind of hypocrisy that the psycho is pointing out, man. It's just something else, man. So you got that issue. Then you have this anti-Muslim sentiment of this president. You know, this man imposed a travel ban against Muslims. You know, a travel ban. You know, but that's a form of religious discrimination. And because, you know, these Republicans were able to maneuver and they were able to prevent Obama from appointing another justice to the Supreme Court, they got this Gorsuch guy in there. And because of the makeup of the court voted to uphold that travel ban, that anti-Muslim travel ban, despite the fact that Donald Trump is on record making anti-Muslim statements, making it clear that he wants to ban Muslims from entering this country, and even floated other types of discriminatory measures against Muslims. Despite that, the Supreme Court gave him the thumbs up with that travel ban by a close vote. So that's another reason why I can't support this man, his anti-Muslim stance. And then this guy is undermining America's relationships with its allies by talking about imposing these tariffs against American allies, by engaging in juvenile behavior at the G8, where you have conflicts between him and these other, G8, G7 countries. You know, you have this conflict between him and other G7 countries. So you have that Russia scandal going on about colluding with Russia. And you have a man that, despite that scandal going on, he's still basically acting as an advocate for Russia. You know, basically talking about how Russia needs to be added to the G7 and all kinds, you know, making all those ridiculous statements. This man has words of praise for dictators. These same Republicans, these same conservatives that had so much to say about Obama reaching out to America's enemies like Iran and others, they have nothing to say about this man heaping praise upon the dictator in North Korea. They have nothing to say about this man saluting a general in the army of North Korea. They had nothing to say about that. They have nothing to say about him putting out videos that are basically propaganda in support of that dictator in North Korea. They have nothing to say about that at all. They have nothing to say about Donald Trump kowtowing and, you know, respecting Putin. You know, despite Putin being an open enemy of the United States. They had nothing to say about that. Again, hypocrisy. And then you have this man basically talking about how he wants to have a right to get rid of immigrants without going through legal process. A man who's made it clear through his statements that he wants to move this country towards being a dictatorship with him as the chief dictator. But these conservatives are fine with that. Again, more hypocrisy. So let me continue on through your comments before I get to these notes from this hangout. I want to try to wrap this up so it's not going to be too long. Just bear with me a second. I have to check my text messages here. Okay. All right. So let's go through your comments. I see Covina Man said he listened to the live podcast as much as he could stomach. And he said these coons are devils. Yeah, I mean, it is hard listening to all the ignorance that these people were spewing on that during that live stream, man. It was so much ignorance, man. I mean, like, some of the people admitted that they were new to politics and they don't really follow politics like that. Basically acknowledging how ignorant they are. All right, so let me just keep going through your comments. So you have this person that says, I'm a white person in the alt-right and I want to debate you guys. All right, I'm gonna go to this person's channel. But before I do that, I'm just gonna look at their channel real quick. And I might as well just share that screen, share the screen so people can see this. Um, so this is the person right here that wants to debate. You know, this person that says they're with the alt-right. I mean, this person has 4 subscribers. Why would anybody waste their time trying to debate him? You know, these are the people that he supports. So I'm gonna stop sharing that stuff. You know, I will not be debating anybody like that. And I'm going to tell you why. I've kind of touched on this before. Like, I think it's a complete waste of time to be debating these white supremacists. You know, to hell with a debate. These people need to be defeated. They need to be defeated in all realms of life. They need to be defeated when it comes to politics. They need to be defeated ideologically. And if they pose a physical threat to us, they need to be defeated physically. You know, we have every right to defend ourselves in every possible way. And that's what these people deserve. These people are our enemies. They don't deal in logic. Racism is illogical. So debating them is a waste of time. We should not be trying to appeal to these people's conscience because they have no conscience. And the fact that somebody like that will come here to basically talk about how they want to debate, and this video is about black men who support Trump. Um, these are the kind of people that are aligned with Donald Trump. These alt-right people, but yet you have these ignorant Negroes that feel comfortable with this. They're okay being under the same tent with white supremacists. They're okay with being under the same tent with these Nazis and Klansmen. That tells you just how thoroughly lost and how thoroughly brainwashed these dumb, deaf, and blind Negroes are. Yeah, I am going to get, yeah, I'm going to do a video response. You know, again, I'm going to go do a video about this Candace Owens person. You know, I plan to make it very thorough. I'm going to do some research on it. There's so much that I could say about that woman. I think she's a fraud. I think she's a joke. Um, and it's just a shame that these people actually follow her and listen to her. Just bear with me 1 minute, y'all. I'm scrolling through your comments. Now, this person said another racist black man with his head in the sand. Moving on. So I'm going to get rid of this person. It's like they always call somebody racist when you speak out against racism. It's not racist to condemn racism. Donald Trump is a racist. Donald Trump has support of racists. You know, it's well documented. All you have to do is a Google search about these white supremacists supporting this man. All you have to do is a Google search and you will see that the Nazis, those alt-right idiots, were celebrating his election with the Nazi salute. And you have the nerve to call me racist for condemning racism. That's how they try to silence people when people are speaking the truth about these real racists. Okay, so Doug said, I don't know about that welfare cut, but I'm a little biased with the cuts. I know too many people that abuse the system. I would rather see more requirements to get on welfare to wean out misuse. I mean, I keep hearing this all the time, you know, about people, quote unquote, abusing the system. Many of the people that abuse the system are white people. Many of the people who are on welfare are white people. In fact, white people are the majority in this country, and they are the majority of people on welfare. Um, and often they paint this lie, this exaggerated example of the welfare queen and all that kind of stuff, living large off of welfare. People are not getting over by being on welfare. Welfare provides the bare minimum that people need to survive. The bare minimum. They're not living it up on welfare. They're not living large on welfare. People are struggling on welfare. Welfare is like a life preserver if somebody is drowning in the ocean. It's just something that keeps someone barely afloat, barely sustainable. It's not something that people are getting over on for the most part. A lot of the people that are on welfare, they are in situations where they may have lost their job, or they may have low skills, low education, and may not have many prospects for prosperity. And Donald Trump and them just want to take away those things. You can't be a person that claims to be a conservative, or, for instance, a lot of these conservatives are evangelicals. They claim to believe in Jesus, but Jesus fed the hungry. Jesus performed, according to biblical beliefs, he performed miracles for those who were in need. He was concerned about his fellow human being. But yet these so-called conservatives have no compassion for the poor. They have no compassion for the sick and the hungry. How else can you explain them trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act? And that's another reason to be against Donald Trump. This man is trying to do everything he can to undermine the Affordable Care Act. Now, the Affordable Care Act has its flaws, obviously, but it has made it possible for millions of people to get health care insurance that ordinarily would not have health insurance, medical insurance. They wouldn't have it without the Affordable Care Act. Before the Affordable Care Act, millions of people were uninsured. And there's a threat that those people may be uninsured again. There's a threat that people with pre-existing conditions may not be able to get health care. But these are the people that want to tell us that they are evangelicals and they're so concerned about their fellow human being, but they have no problem stripping away health care for fellow human beings. They have no problem taking away food from the hungry and housing for the homeless. That's not real conservatism. That's not compassion for your fellow man. That's not the so-called religious values that these people profess to have. So Big Game Orenthal said exactly the dude in the red hat said he had just recently started following politics, but somehow is 100% for Donald Trump. Exactly. I mean, how can anybody take someone seriously who just happened to jump into politics, doesn't even know like all the issues, acknowledges that they didn't follow politics, and because Donald Trump is involved, they decide to support him and they're running around with a hat. These people look like complete fools. That's what they look like. And I see that this person said Obama didn't do shit for Black people. We lost so much ground under Obama. I mean, that is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. People that say stuff like that are people that don't do their research. Obama defended voting rights in the Shelby County versus Holder case, in the Texas voter ID cases, voting rights that impact Black people. Obama fought to protect affirmative action in the case of Fisher versus the University of Texas. Obama had an executive order that called for excellence in Black education. Obama did other things, like through his Justice Department, they fought against police brutality. They investigated several police departments and entered consent decrees with those police departments to end discriminatory practices in those police departments and police brutality. They entered consent decrees in Ferguson, in Baltimore, and in other cities and jurisdictions. These people that say Obama has done nothing for Black people don't know what the hell they're talking about. They're uninformed buffoons. That's what they are, because they don't do any research. They don't do any research at all. Those are a couple of examples. Obama granted clemency to many nonviolent Black drug offenders, freed them from jail. And these same people, they want to ignore all of that. They want to celebrate the fact that Donald Trump threw you Negroes some crumbs by partnering, I mean, partnering by, excuse me, by, giving a pardon to this woman, Alex Johnson. I mean, because of that, these people are celebrating in the streets, but Obama helped free many people by granting them clemency for nonviolent drug offenses. Many of those people were African American, but these people want to ignore that. They want to pretend like Obama's done nothing for Black people. That is an outright lie. The Obama administration also decided that they would no longer seek like mandatory minimums and stuff like that for nonviolent drug offenders who are, many of them are African American. Obama helped push for the Fair Sentencing Act, an act that reduced the sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine. But you want to ignore that, a disparity that resulted in the mass incarceration of Black people, the disproportionate punishment against African Americans dealing cocaine, crack cocaine compared to powder cocaine. But y'all want to just ignore all of that. Y'all want to pretend like that didn't even happen. And then Obama helped push for the Brothers Keepers program, a program designed to benefit Black and Latino youth, young men. But yet you have this person here talking about Obama did nothing for Black people. You are a fool. You don't know what you're talking about. You did not do your research. Plain and simple as that. But this is what passes for, conservatism, ignorance, stupidity, somebody being uneducated and uninformed about the facts. If you say Obama's done nothing for Black people, you don't know what you're talking about. Under Obama, Black unemployment declined and continues to decline today because of measures that he put in place. But yet you have this fool talking about Obama did nothing for Black people. Yeah, and Diamond Girl '08 is correct. I mean, these people have blinders on when it comes to Black issues. They're not concerned with Black issues. Yeah, and then Big Game Arthur also pointed out how that guy was like saying that Donald Trump helped out all these helped out Black people by getting uh one of the Barr brothers freed in China and all that kind of stuff. But then it since came out that Donald Trump had very little to do with that. But yet they're spreading this misinformation. He says spreading misinformation for butter biscuits. Exactly. And then they cite a couple of little examples that help out a couple of individuals. That is not something that's beneficial to Black people as a collective just because he threw you Negroes some crumbs, threw you Negroes this one Black woman, threw you Negroes, this purported help for one of the Barr brothers. Is that enough to say that this man has done something for Black people because he helped out a couple of select individuals? That pales in comparison to what Obama did for Black people. But yet these same people want to talk about how Obama's done nothing for Black people. Again, these people don't know what they're talking about. Exactly. Big Game talked about exactly conservative values, but supporting a baby daddy molester. Exactly, man. A man that's been accused by multiple women of sexual assault. Accused of all kind and bragging about this stuff. Again, shout out to Elaine Lloyd. Thanks for putting in that work in the chat room, getting rid of the trolls. I appreciate it. Yeah, so I'm gonna get to these notes in a second. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a valid point about Obama and the policy in Libya and stuff, and how after that, that coup where they got rid of Gaddafi, you had these Arabs basically began enslaving black people again, oppressing black people, attacking black people. That's a very important issue that deserves more attention. It's something that I've touched upon in some videos that I've done. That was a disastrous policy. My only point is that Obama did good things, but also there are things that I disagree with Obama on, like his policies in Israel, his support of imperialism and American empire. I've done many written blogs about this and videos about this. I'm just simply pointing out the fact that to say he did nothing for black people is just an outright lie. And also, I've spoken out against his drone policy of killing people without due process and all that kind of stuff. So I don't agree with everything that Obama did. And I think that that point that you raised about the policy in Libya is a very valid point. Yeah, I see Elaine is just taking them out, taking out these trolls. I appreciate it. Yeah, Elaine Lloyd said they come out in droves, groves you know, when you start talking about Trump. Yeah, so Elaine Lloyd said Obama wasn't perfect, um, but to say he did nothing at all is just dishonest. That's it. Exactly. That's my whole point. All right, so I'm going to go through these notes that I have here. Um, one thing that kept coming up throughout their discussion was this whole idea of leaving the Democratic plantation. And, I really think that that's ridiculous. I mean, that kind of rhetoric is just stupid, describing the Democratic Party as a plantation. Really, I think at the end of the day, Black people need to be aligned with their agenda and vote for candidates and parties that align with that agenda the best. I think that that's what it should come down to. And we should hold both parties accountable. Uh, we should use political power and influence to impact both political parties, just like how the Zionist interests work with Democrats and Republicans. Both of the parties cater to the interests of groups like APAC. That's how the African American community needs to be. But to talk about like Black people support for the Democrats as like being on some kind of plantation, it's absolutely idiotic. When you look at the two parties, you see that there's one party that is openly hostile to the interests of Black people. And I've cited some of the examples when I was talking about the things that I don't agree with Donald Trump when it comes to Black issues. It's just it's documented like how hostile the Republicans are to the interests of Black people. All you have to do is look at the Southern strategy, how after the Civil Rights Movement, a lot of Democrats in the South were disenchanted with the Democratic Party. So they began to leave the Democratic Party. And the Republicans saw that as an opportunity to gain political power. So what they did is they pandered to racist people. And they have been doing it ever since, pandering to a racist element. It is no coincidence that most of the South is Republican. That is because of the Southern strategy, a strategy designed to appeal to racist elements. And that continues today with this Trump administration. So you have one party that's openly hostile to the interests of Black people, and you have a party that at least does some things that are beneficial to the interests of Black people. So when Black people see those things, naturally they're going to go more towards the Democratic Party. It only makes sense. It is not being on a plantation. It is taking an assessment and deciding which party best serves the interests of Black people. Now, there are plenty of faults with the Democratic Party, which I've discussed on many occasions on this channel and my New Possibilities channel. But to suggest that voting for Democrats as being on a plantation is ridiculous. I think that it's more apt to say supporting a party that is hostile to your interests. That's more like being on a plantation. That's stupid. You know, supporting a party that's made it clear that they don't support your interests as a people. You know, and they also kept bringing up this whole victimhood narrative, talking about how when Black people talk about issues that impact our community, that's us being victims. And we're not trying to advance as a people. We're just wallowing in victimhood and all that kind of stuff. That was a key talking point that they kept raising. And it's like these people are like walking billboards for political campaigns instead of people that are using critical thinking skills. To acknowledge actual facts is not to wallow in victimhood. To acknowledge the fact that Black men are disproportionately targeted and killed by these police, that's not wallowing in victimhood. That's just stating actual facts. When you talk about the disproportionate poverty in the Black community, when you talk about the failing schools in the Black community, when you talk about mass incarceration, those are actual facts. It's not wallowing in victimhood to acknowledge problems that impact our community and the causes of those problems. You can't get empowered without addressing those issues. So let me go through some more of these notes that they left. And then, you know, these people kept bringing up this point about Black Lives Matter and, you know, so-called Black on Black violence, you know, the typical stuff these people raise, you know, talking about how Black people don't care when it's Black on Black violence, but Black people care when police are engaged in violence against Black people. Nothing can be further from the truth. All you have to do is look at any community. You will see Black people holding vigils when Black people are killed in these incidents of so-called Black on Black violence. You will see stop the violence organizations in Black communities. So these people that say this are people that are exaggerating. When that young man was killed in the Bronx, you know, viciously cut up and stabbed and, you know, cut up with machetes and knives and all that kind of stuff, people came out in large numbers protesting against that violence. And many of the people in those crowds were Black people, African-American people. Even though the young man is Dominican, from what I understand, or Hispanic. And, you know, from what I understand, like he's an Afro Latino because, you know, one of his relatives I saw was, you know, a brown-skinned Black woman, you know, from one of those Spanish-speaking countries, I think from the Dominican Republic or whatever. And as you all know, there are Black people throughout the Latin America and all that kind of stuff. So you saw plenty of Black people participating in those rallies and stuff after that young man was killed, viciously killed. And you see it around the country. You see these stop the violence organizations. Like here in Baltimore, we have Baltimore Cease Fire. We have the 300-man march. And in Detroit, you had an organization that's dedicated to fighting against the violence. You have New Era Detroit and all these groups all over the country that are fighting against inner city violence. So it is just outright false to suggest that Black people don't care about violence when it's so-called Black on Black violence. That is a false narrative that is used to deflect away from the real and necessary conversation about police brutality. And then they were talking about this issue of being Black first versus being American first and all that kind of stuff. And you had this guy named Mike, who was basically saying that he's trying to rise above tribalism, you know, and other people were saying this stuff to this effect, and basically saying that they're about the individual instead of the collective and stuff like that. They're not focused on the race. They're focused more as individuals and stuff like that. And really, I think that That's ridiculous. You know, for some of the reasons that even O'Shea pointed out, because all these other groups, they work as groups. Like you have the Jewish community, you have the Latino community, you have the LGBT community, you have all these different subgroups of people. You have the Muslim community. All these people working for the interests of their particular group. You know, going lobbying Congress. You know, talking to their representatives. You have the Asian community, etc., using whatever means is available to them to push their interests. They work as a collective. They recognize that they have collective interests and collective needs that have to be addressed, and they lobby for those collective needs. Even corporate America does this. So this idea that we should not be thinking about our group is just loony. This idea that we should not be advocating for Black people is ridiculous. Groups, when they work together, they're able to be empowered. Like a single finger has no power, but when it's balled up into a fist, it has power. You know, a man standing alone trying to accomplish something has very little power. But when that man unites with others as a collective for a collective purpose, on a collective mission, with a collective aim and all that kind of stuff, their potential is limitless. And that's what these people just don't understand, man. They think that they can do everything as an individual. When all these other groups organize as collectives, they work as collectives, they lobby as collectives, it only makes sense. It's only rational. But this is what these people were trying to advocate on this hangout. You know, they also, you know, again, with this victimhood narrative, they're suggesting that Black people don't want to be responsible. You can be responsible and actually, you know, actually strive to improve your life. Like, and that's what Black people do. But at the same time, you don't ignore reality. You don't pretend like police brutality doesn't exist. You don't pretend like racial profiling doesn't exist. You don't pretend like, you know, discrimination in employment doesn't exist. When you have all these studies documenting the fact that a Black person with an educate, you know, the same level of education as a white person earns less than a white person, that a white person with a criminal history has a good chance of getting a job when compared to a Black person. When you have situations where people are discriminated against based on their name sounding African American, you cannot ignore that reality. And acknowledging that reality doesn't mean that you wallow in helplessness, that you wallow in victimhood. You still get up and strive to improve your life. Like myself, like I acknowledge the problems that exist for Black people, but I didn't sit back and feel helpless. That didn't stop me from trying to get an education and becoming a professional. And that's not what anybody is advocating. We're talking about acknowledging reality and then striving to improve our lives. So it's not an either or type of situation, unlike this false dilemma that you have these conservatives present. So let me just go through some more of these notes. You know, and then these people talk about like these immigrants are, you know, they kept talking about like how these immigrants are competing for your jobs and your scholarships and this and that. Many of these immigrants that come to this country, like these quote unquote illegal immigrants, come with very low skills and low education. You know, these people that they talk about from the Latin America and stuff, they come with very low skills and education. And often, many of the jobs that they are seeking are jobs that African Americans are not trying to compete or trying to get involved in. You know, jobs in agriculture and other manual labor jobs that are grueling and all that kind of stuff. They're not undermining African Americans' opportunities to get jobs and all that kind of stuff. I think that that is grossly exaggerated. And, you know, O'Shea made a good point during his hangout when he was talking about how you have these Black conservatives who basically profit by saying a whole bunch of negative things about Black people. You know, they get some kind of green ticket by like going hard against Black people. You know, he talked about how you had these white racists basically come to him and ask him to do all these videos about all this trifling stuff happening in the Black community because these white racists don't want to be outed as racist. So what they want to do is they take these Negro puppets and they feed them information and they get them to talk about the things that they are afraid to talk about. Because when they have these Negroes out front, they serve as buffers against charges of racism. Because if you have a Negro out there bashing Black people, it's difficult to say that that guy is a racist. Whereas if it was a white man openly saying these anti-Black things, you would be able to quickly call him out as a racist. But what they do is they use these Negro puppets, just like a ventriloquist uses a dummy to to speak for them. That's what some of these Black conservatives are. They are puppets for white supremacy. And they don't have any problem with allowing themselves to be in that position because they are concerned about money, they're concerned about prestige, they're concerned about attention, and they couldn't give a damn about Black people. They're all about the individual. They are all about their individual advancement. They couldn't care less about Black people. They want Negroes to serve as attack dogs for them, just like that Negro in that movie Django, that Negro Stephen, who was an attack dog against his own people. He was eager to serve his master. He loved his master, in the words of Malcolm X, more than the master loved himself. When the master got shot in that film, here you have that Negro Stephen crying, alligator tears, screaming, like as if his daddy was shot, as if someone he loved and cherished was shot. That's how some of these so-called conservatives act. They love to play the role of the overseer and the coon. They love that. So let me just go through some more of these notes. And that guy, Mike, he talked about how there's outrage about Black people wearing these Make America Great Again hats, but there's no outrage when people wear, like Obama gear or whatever. I mean, for all the reasons that I pointed out, there's righteous outrage when people support a man like Donald Trump. That's saying make America great again, for all intents and purposes, means make America white again. That's what it really means when you boil it down to its essence. And in fact, you have some of these racists that outright put that slogan out there, make America white again, because they know that that's actually what Donald Trump is trying to tell them with these racial dog whistles. But these people are so not ignorant and so naive, they can't catch it. They can't pick it up. They can't grasp the whole agenda behind this Trump administration. And they think that just because this man threw out some bones to you people, threw out some crumbs to you with, this Alice Johnson and these other people, they think that because of that, this man has some love for Black people, because this man basically asked the same football players that he disrespected to recommend people for pardon. They think that because of that, this man cares about Black people. I mean, that is just asinine. Have they forgotten that this is the same man that took out a full-page ad in a New York paper encouraging the state to reenact the death penalty to be used against the suspects in the Central Park rape case? Even though these suspects were later exonerated, this man has still failed to apologize to those Black men. They want to ignore all of that stuff, all the examples that are provided. They want to ignore that stuff. And you have one person say, well, just because racists support him, that doesn't mean he's a racist. I mean, this is the extent to which these people will do all kinds of ridiculous mental gymnastics to justify supporting this guy. Again, it's not a coincidence that these people support him. They support him because of his agenda, an agenda that's hostile to Black people, an agenda that panders to these white supremacists. So it's not about these people just supporting him out of the blue, just happening to support him. They support him because he supports them. because he supports their agenda on a low-key type of level. So that's why it matters that these racists support this guy. But these people have their blinders on. These people have blindfolds on. These people have their heads buried in the sand, and they don't want to acknowledge the truth. And then, these people were asked, they said, one of these people said, I think it was that guy, Mike, he said, what motivation does somebody like ABL or Candace Owens have to manipulate people? And there's a simple answer to that: fame and money. That's their motivation. These people that voted for Obama, these people that were liberals at one point, all of a sudden they expect people to believe that they're these staunch conservatives. These people are hustlers. These people are frauds. These people are charlatans. And then you had this guy, the guy with the beard. I can't remember. I think his name is Ike or whatever. This guy that looked like he was a member of the Taliban or whatever. Basically talking about how Trump denies making those statements. I think he was the one that said Trump denies making those statements. It may have been him or that other guy, Mike. One of them basically said Trump denied making those statements about Africa being a shithole country, and they basically said that the media is making this stuff up. Well, when that first came out, Donald Trump didn't deny it. Donald Trump didn't get out there and say, I did not say that. In fact, he said something along the lines suggesting that somehow he did make those statements. And you had a senator in that room who said that he heard this man say that. And you had other people acknowledge that this man said it. So I'm going with the fact that he did say this. I know that I'm pretty sure that he probably said this. He didn't deny it. The story had been floating around for a while, and this man didn't deny it. So more likely than not, he made that statement. And the fact that you got these conservatives putting their heads in the sand and pretending not to see this or acknowledge it, I mean, it just tells you how lost these people are, how delusional these people are. Just bear with me a second. I'm going to go through some more of these notes. Yeah, I touched on that point. And then you had this person say Trump had nothing to do with Charlottesville. I mean, are these people even listening to the news? Are these people even reading newspapers? I mean, they're going to say something like that when Donald Trump basically said that these were some fine people. That made him involved in the city. When he said that those are some very fine people participating in that stuff, when he said there's blame on both sides, that man became involved in that Charlottesville situation at that point. So to say that he had nothing to do with Charlottesville is absolutely false. It is ridiculous when this man basically co-signed those white supremacists that participated in that demonstration. And then you had this young guy, Mike, suggested we shouldn't be worried about the history, ignore history, just live in the moment. I mean, it just tells you how lost people are, man. You can't understand your presence without understanding your present. You can't understand your present without understanding your past. And you can't really actualize your future without knowing the past. It's important to know about this Republican Party's history when it comes to the Southern strategy. It's important to understand that. It's important to understand how basically the party switched, like a lot of those racist Democrats that people want to complain about, those racist Democrats that supported the KKK and all this and that. Those Democrats, so-called Dixiecrats, became Republicans under this Southern strategy. You have to understand that history in order to understand what's happening with this Donald Trump nowadays, him appealing to these white supremacists and racists. That's very important to understand. It's important to understand your history of being enslaved in this country, your history of Jim Crow in this country. You can't understand the current day conditions of the Black community without understanding that. But yet you have this ignorant Negro with this Make America Great hat on, talking about we don't need to be worried about our history and we need to be focused on the moment. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's like for instance, goldfish, animals that don't have the ability to remember much. They only live in the present. That's putting you on an animal type of level. You have to understand your history in order to understand your present and your future. So I'm just about done. I'm going to go through some more of these notes before I close out. I want to thank y'all for tuning in, and I will get to your comments before I close. It's late, so I'm probably not going to be able to do my hangout on my New Possibilities channel tonight. I will do that later on this week, either tomorrow or Friday, because there are a whole bunch of issues that need to be discussed. I want to talk about the election. I want to talk about several issues involving race. In particular, that Antoine Rose case. There's some updates on that I want to talk about. And, these people kept talking about being obsessed with race, like they were saying that people like myself that talk about race issues are obsessed with race, and we don't know, we're not focused on other things. We just obsessed about race. I mean, when we look at our situation as a people, we have to understand the importance of race. We have to understand it when we see these police killing our people, when we see the failing schools in our community, when we see the mass incarceration, when we see the double unemployment rate in Black communities compared to white communities. We have to be race conscious and racially awoke in order to improve our condition. And by basically lulling yourself to sleep with this false notion that this is some colorblind society, that doesn't advance us as a people. That doesn't help us as a people. And that's the type of ignorance that a lot of these people are stooped in, like this guy, Mark, that was on that Google Hangout. The only thing that these people are able to point to that they say Trump has done for Black people is this, the unemployment rate, again, which goes back to policies of Obama. And then they want to talk about like him taking a harsh stand on immigration, like somehow that's improving the plight of Black people. There's no empirical evidence proving that at all. There's no evidence that these people are presented proving that his harsh stance separating children from their parents, that somehow that helps Black people. Him having ICE round up people and all that kind of stuff, somehow that benefits Black people. Where is the proof? Show and prove your point. Prove the how it's connected, the correlation between these immigration policies and the plight of Black people. There is no correlation. Again, these same people that hate the immigrants hate Black people. The same people that hate the Muslims hate Black people. It's time for us to get a clue and wake up. And then these people talk about Asians not voting. That's ridiculous. I mean, a lot of the Asians vote. They depend on laws in order to have their businesses in place and all that kind of stuff. So it's like these people run with all these half-truths and just outright distortions and lies, man. Unfortunately, so many people go along with it. And then you had these people talking about why Black men support Donald Trump. You had these Black men actually claiming that Black men are supporting Donald Trump because he's cutting all these programs that benefit Black women. Section 8 and food stamps. Again, cutting those programs harms Black people, period, including Black boys who grow up in these single parent households where they have little resources, where they need food assistance and housing assistance. That aid houses Black boys. That aid feeds Black boys. But these same people that want to claim to be advocates for Black men ignore that fact. These people are so bitter and full of hate that they would support a man that is doing things that are undermining the Black community. How does that empower Black men by getting rid of programs that benefit Black people? And then you had some person talking about no other and I think it was that clown Xanatos Clutch, that white sounding dude, the guy that talks all white. And there's a difference between speaking proper English and talking like a white man. So this guy, this clown Xanatos Clutch, was basically saying that I guess Donald Trump was the only president who's cut these different programs. I mean, him cutting programs is nothing new. Republicans have done that for a long time, and you had these conservative Democrats like like Bill Clinton who have cut programs. Bill Clinton cut welfare as we know it. He ended welfare as people knew it at that time. Cut welfare and all these other programs substantially. Another reason why I couldn't support Hillary Clinton. So, the idea that Trump was the only president to cut those programs is ridiculous. And, these people said that Trump is focusing on these immigrants and, cracking down on these immigrants and not cracking down, not being harsh towards Black people. So that's something that, or Black men in particular, and that's one of the reasons why Black people should support him. And again, I provided examples of this man supporting policies that are hostile to Black people. Not only is he hostile to immigrants, he's hostile to the interests of Black people. And I won't repeat what I said before. You all get the picture. So this notion that somehow Trump is neutral towards Black men is preposterous. It's outright ridiculous. And then you have these people so eager for a strong male role model, so desperate for any kind of strong male role model or some quote unquote alpha man that they will rely on an asshole like Donald Trump to be that role model for them, that example for them. They say that they support him and they vote him because he doesn't take crap. He's not soft. He doesn't, tolerate things from, women and all that kind of stuff. So they look up to that. They admire that because these are weak ass men looking for a daddy figure. I mean, it's just pathetic, man. Looking up to a man like a Donald Trump, a man who is not a role model by any definition for all the reasons that I outlined before. And, this notion that, also O'Shea was saying something about how Black America needs to fail in order to get better, basically saying that we need to lose all these programs and all this stuff in order to improve as a people. I mean, I think that that's just outright ridiculous. Suggesting that people need to lose housing, they need to lose food, they need to lose affirmative action, they need to lose voting rights, they need to lose protections from police brutality and all these things in order to improve as a community. That sounds ridiculous to me. That makes no sense to me. And, this notion that they kept promoting during this live stream, this notion that somehow it's all just about Black men, it's not about, advancing the Black community. I think that that's a narrow-minded focus. There is no advancement for Black men if there's no advancement for Black people. There is no advancement for the Black woman without advancement for the Black man and the Black community. And that's what you have. You have this divide here on YouTube where you have these men that are only about men's issues, and then you have these women, these bitter women and bitter men. For instance, these bitter women who are just about promoting Black women empowerment at the expense of the Black community. These women that are so desperate, for instance, to celebrate dark-skinned women that they will accept any kind of celebration of a dark-skinned woman, even if it's with a white man or some program where you got Black women lusting over these white guys and stuff like that. Desperation. And I think that this divide, this gender divide, is undermining our community. And we can't advance as a people if we keep thinking in terms of just our gender instead of us as a collective group of people. It has to be about the Black community as a collective. So I'm done with my commentary. So I'm going to go through your comments in the chat room before I close out. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. I appreciate it. It is late, but I appreciate your support by watching. All right. So Elaine Lloyd said there are more trolls than usual, and it's probably because of the Trump title. I'm glad she's in there putting in that work, taking them out. Yeah, Donald Trump had the nerve to ask what you had to lose for voting for him. You got to, I can run through some of the things. You got to, you can lose your voting rights, lose your Section 8, your food stamps. You can lose your affirmative action. Um, you can lose your protection from police violence. All kinds of things that people are going to lose under this man. And when we see the impact of these terrorists, all these people that are talking about how he's great for the economy, let's see what they have to say when the economy is impacted by these terrorists against American allies. Let's see how they feel about that. I'm just going through your comments. And healthcare, that's a very important issue. You got low, like Elaine Lloyd pointed out, healthcare is a very important issue, and many Black people are disproportionately impacted by healthcare issues, and in terms of the lack of healthcare insurance. And the Affordable Care Act helped insure many African Americans, and Donald Trump is again trying to strip away and chip away at that program that has benefited many African Americans who are disproportionately uninsured. So again, that's a very important issue. Yeah, that term "black on black crime" is victim blaming, man. Because these people that talk about this stuff, they don't consider the fact that most people commit violence within their group. They don't consider the factors that lead to the violence, like the poverty and the lack of opportunity, the lack of education, the lack of employment opportunities. And when you combine that with the drugs and the guns being flooded into communities, they don't consider any of that. They just look at the individual and they want to blame Black people for everything without holding society accountable for its quote unquote benign neglect of Black communities, which help further this kind of violence that we see in Black communities. Yeah, that's a good point, Big Game. They talk about rising above tribalism. When the party that these people are supporting is all about tribalism, but their tribalism is white nationalism. That's what they're about. That's what Donald Trump is about when he has this America First mentality. That is a form of tribalism. That is a form of nationalism. But these same people that support a man who is more tribalistic than any other president that we've had in recent history, they support that man, but they want to preach to Black people about being too tribal when we talk about advancing our interests as a people. That's hypocrisy again. Shout out to Jalen. Shout out to Doug. So Doug said that he still wants to see a one-on-one debate with ABL. Yeah, I want to see that too, man. Like a structured debate. I want to debate the guy one-on-one, like with a structured debate. I mean, one thing that I can't stand about that guy is he does like this semantics game where he wants to have you define words and stuff like that, get into some tangent about the definition of the word instead of dealing with the issue. Another problem I have with the guy is he likes to talk over people. He thinks that he wins a debate by talking over people and being, interrupting people and stuff like that. If I'm going to have a debate with him, it has to be structured where there's nobody interrupting someone, where people have a time limit on their response, where there's no filibustering and stuff like that. A structured one-on-one debate. That's what I want with a person like him. instead of like being on a panel where all these people are chiming in, and you know, it's like all these people talking. So you don't really have an opportunity for a one-on-one debate. But I think that in the hangouts that I participated in, I think I debunked a lot of his BS with actual facts and studies and statistics. So even though it wasn't a one-on-one debate, I think that I, you know, destroyed him when it came to the debates, you know, the conversations that we've had. And it's very easy. I mean, here you have a guy who's basically claiming that white supremacy doesn't exist. It's a non-factor when all the evidence, all the stats, everything goes counter to that point. So it's very easy to rebut this man's arguments, to destroy his premises and all that kind of stuff. He stands on very shaky ground. So debating him is easy. I mean, Phil from the Advisor broke him down real proper. It's nothing to defeat that guy in a debate. He's not even all that. Like he's not a great debater. He's just somebody that talks over people and plays with technology and stuff like that. You know, only a sucker would like believe that he's making some strong, profound points when he's not actually pointing to actual facts and stats. All right, so Jalen said there was an alt-right troll that wanted to debate me. Again, I don't entertain those people. You know, it's a waste of time to debate those clowns. You're giving them legitimacy by debating them, by, you know, you're suggesting that somehow they have some valid point that's worthy of your time and energy trying to rebut. These people are our enemies, and we need to treat them as such, man. We should not be entertaining them on our platforms, trying to debate with them, trying to reason with them, trying to use moral appeals to these people. They just need to be destroyed politically, ideologically, and if necessary, physically. Yeah, I didn't watch much of that debate between Robert Perkins and ABL. I saw a little bit of it, but I wasn't impressed with that too much. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, he did bring up a lot of points that big game. Yeah, Phil brought up points that people like him share with those conservatives. You know, like I won't get into it, but I hate when people talk about quote unquote Pookie and Ray Ray and all this kind of stuff. You know, perpetuating some of these negative stereotypes about black people being trifling and stuff. I can't stand that kind of stuff. And that's what he was doing a lot of on that show. And what I plan to do is like I'm gonna slice up segments from that live stream and post them on my New Possibilities channel because I know some people don't have the time to be watching something that lasts hours. Um, I want to show some of the highlights of some of the points that I made during that hangout. So I hope to have those up sometime this week. So y'all look out for that. Big Game said the dude with the beard wouldn't even be allowed to set foot in a Trump rally. Agreed. They may think he's a protester and rough him up. Yeah, man. And the thing with that guy, man, he was using all this street logic, man. He was like, I mean, he said that he had been in jail or whatever, you know, using this jailhouse logic and stuff, man, thinking he was like making some profound points, man. And it really sounded, I mean, these people sound so ignorant and they don't realize it, man. They really don't. And none of those people will actually address any of these substantive points that I made about Trump's anti-black agenda. But I'm gonna wrap this up because I know it's late and I've been on here for a minute. I never heard of Tree of Logic, Doug. I'm gonna have to check that channel out. Yeah, and I mean, how could anybody support a man that separates children from their family, man? Just on a human level, how can you support that? How can you co-sign that? Just as a human being, especially African American people who have a history of being separated from their families. And the fact is, you got these Negroes supporting this guy. I mean, it sickens me, man. Yeah. So one D forever said both presidential candidates were horrible for us. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't support Hillary Clinton. I made that clear. I wasn't voting for her. For me, I supported Bernie Sanders during the primaries, and after the primaries, I supported Jill Stein for president. So I understand that. But even with that being said, I think that Hillary Clinton would have been a better president than Donald Trump. In fact, Donald Duck would be a better president than Donald Trump. Mickey Mouse would be a better president than Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a clown. Donald Trump is a buffoon. And all these people that have so much to say, they don't have nothing to say about this buffoon who embarrasses the United States every single day that he opens his mouth or every single minute that he gets on Twitter with his ridiculous rants. Yeah, there has to be accountability around, for women and men. It has to go around. I agree with that cycle. And unfortunately, you don't have that. You have black men just wanting to hold black women accountable, and you have black women just wanting to hold black men accountable. Yeah, Dinus asked a good question about whether or not they were black first, and all these people were ducking and dodging that and talking about how they're American first and this and that. We've never been American first. America has reminded us that we're not American first. I mean, they treated us like second class. First, we were enslaved, not even recognized as citizens. And then when we were recognized as citizens, we were subjected to second class treatment and Jim Crow for decades. And even today, when these police kill us in the streets, they remind us how they don't view us as Americans or treat us as such. But yet you had these delusional Negroes talking about how they're not black first and they're, American first. They don't want to they don't want to be tribalistic when America is one of the most tribal societies in the world. All right. So, yeah, so with that, I'm going to say peace and blessings to everyone. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate it. And sometime later this week, maybe tomorrow, but it'll be soon. I plan to do another hangout on my New Possibilities channel, addressing these different race issues that need to be discussed. It's very late and I have to get to work tomorrow. If I didn't have work, I would go ahead and just press forward and do that hangout right now. But I really appreciate your support. For those of you who are not subscribed to this channel, I encourage you to subscribe and support this channel. Like the video, share my videos. I appreciate your support. And with that, I'll say peace and blessings to each and every one of you. The war continues, and I will be posting on here more regularly. Peace.